Welcome to CMO Confidential, the podcast that takes you inside the drama, decisions, and choices that go with being the head of marketing. Hosted by five-time CMO Mike Linton.
Welcome, marketers, advertisers, and those who love them to Chief Marketing Officer Confidential. CMO Confidential is a program that takes you inside the drama, the decisions, and the politics that go with being the head of marketing at any company in what is one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite. I'm Mike Linton, the former Chief Marketing Officer of Best Buy, eBay, Farmers Insurance, and Ancestry.com, here today with my guest, Rishad Tobaccowala. Today's topic, a leading marketing thinker and futurist talks about what's next, part two. Rishad served as president of Starcom, chief innovation officer of Publicis, and is a best-selling author, in-demand speaker, and the host of What's Next, a podcast that provides a wide-ranging look at the future. As you can gather from our pithy title and introduction, this is his second time on the show. Welcome, Rishad.
Thank you, Michael and Mike, both. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Okay, first question. We did a show last summer of 23, and there's been an awful lot of change since then. Given how you look at the world, what are the biggest changes in the business landscape that you see that has happened since our last show?
I would say that very broadly, the biggest broad change is that AI has become mainstreamed. We started thinking about AI for the first time, really. Not that companies weren't in it long before, but it sort of happened upon the world in November of 2022.
Yeah.
And it was in March of 2023 that GPT-4 came out, which was a more advanced version of ChatGPT or GPT 3.5. And since then, every major company, including Microsoft, Meta, have basically angled towards that. I've just come back last week. I was at CES, and CES was AI first, devices second for the first time in 15 years. So one is AI everywhere, and it's AI as lipstick on a pig. So whether you have AI or you don't have AI, you slap AI on everything. And there's this great ad from Tropicana, which basically shows the package without the letters I and A.
Yeah.
So they renamed the package, they renamed the drink to whatever, Tropicana.
Yeah.
And it says 100% pure orange juice, 0% AI. But outside of that, most people are 100% AI, and sometimes that's 100% bullshit.
So is this like the connected home was a number of years ago, where everyone was just saying they were a connected home and they didn't, you used the words lipstick on a pig, which would be, it's AI, but in name only, or is it really progress on a lot of these businesses?
In many cases, there is progress. The reason there is progress is because while we have been thinking about AI broadly, in the public imagination for about a year and a month or two, AI itself has been 80 years old. And
Right.
Some of the first breakthroughs in AI, in 1996 is when Deep Blue beat Kasparov.
And
Okay?
chess.
In chess.
Yeah.
It was 2000 and I think 12 where DeepMind beat AlphaGo, or beat the best AlphaGo player.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, the last 10 years have had major advances in AI. But it took something like GPT-4 and this combination of chips from GPU, lots of internet stuff to train on, and new algorithms to really blast upon the world, which meant that many companies had been doing that. To a certain extent, a third of all of Amazon's sales used to take place after you checked out. That was a form of AI. And the way I look at it, AI is applied statistics. It's basically correlation, analysis. So I think that's there. I think the big thing that's happening is the smart companies are recognizing that AI is broader than generative AI. So I see a lot of consulting companies thinking that AI is generative AI, And generative AI, which is sort of chat GPT, et cetera, is about 10% of AI, right? And AI really is everything from protein folding
Right.
to a lot of other things. And so to a great extent, we are caught up with the shiny toy, which is somewhat important, but AI is very broad. So net is, I actually wrote a piece which is very popular called AI is underhyped,
Yeah,
which
I
is,
was going to ask you that next.
yeah.
And also,
Yeah,
you
so
did
the
that.
AI is underhyped. So AI, I think many companies are really making progress in this area, but some are not, and they're just sticking it on or becoming narrow. But many, many smart companies are moving forward.
So, and you said in this piece that AI was going to create a wild ride for the four big horsemen of the
Yes,
GDP.
yes.
Tell us what you meant about that, and
So,
then I want to follow on and talk about to all our marketing and advertising listeners. Let's talk about AI, and then we have a whole host of issues, but
sure.
let's go the four horsemen of the GDP.
All right. So in the United States, about 50% of GDP is four industries: healthcare, education, mobility slash transportation, which could be think of, automobiles plus,
Yep.
and education. Okay. So, if I mention education twice, then finance. So it's
Yeah,
basically
that was
yeah,
good because
right,
there's a
right.
lot of education, and we
All right,
learned
right,
financials out when we heard it. Okay,
right. So
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So it's finance,
Got
education,
healthcare
automobiles,
and
healthcare.
mobility.
Yeah, and mobility and healthcare. That's 50%, right? So now
Yeah,
let's look at how it's going to impact. So in the case of automobiles, uh, the reason we eventually are going to have either self-driving cars or smarter cars, even if not completely self-driving, is because of AI. Uh, and so that's one area where AI is having a big impact. When you think about healthcare, the reason a company like DeepMind was formed, which was eventually bought by Google, was it was basically to help in things like protein folding and better understand, protein structure, which it actually did.
just so
I,
everybody knows what protein folding is, you should give us a sentence or two on it.
it's just that how different proteins are put together. What are some of the component parts and how do they like come together? So now you actually have a model where you can actually describe how they come together and you better understand it. And so to an extent, it's like another form of, when they broke in and understood human DNA with the human genome. So
Yeah,
this is the same thing with regard to proteins.
and this is massive for health, right?
It's
Because
it's 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 it's
understanding
it's
protein is massive.
it's massive for health. And when you think about it, if you think about what I believe are the two big technologies that are somewhat connected, which is AI plus biotech. So AI plus biotech is actually how we began to have vaccines for COVID, right? When you think about everything that Pfizer or Moderna and other people did, uh, it's basically that. So the next generation of healthcare technology will be that combination. The other one really is we now already know that many of these AI things can do diagnosis better than many radiologists and many doctors, right? So it doesn't mean you won't have doctors and radiologists, but doctors and radiologists will look at the results and look for what may be wrong in the analysis or add a human touch to it. In fact, a human interface, because you don't want a AI to tell you you're ill. You need a human being to tell you you're ill. But in effect, it will change what every doctor does, every radiologist does, every practitioner does, while it changes the very science of medicine. So clearly, there's automobiles there, there's medicine there. Education, one of the interesting things was one of the companies that was basically in sort of the book Chegg, right? Chegg
Yeah.
one day basically said people are buying fewer books because they're utilizing ChatGPT to answer questions, and their stock price fell like 40 or 50% that day, right? So in the case of education, I would look at things like Khan Academy, etc. Both because of COVID, where a lot of parents were wondering what exactly were they paying for in
Yeah.
education. And the fact that today, education will change. So for instance, when I was growing up in India, we didn't have calculators, so we had to learn multiplication tables,
Yeah.
right? Um, and once there were calculators, people said, why do you need to learn multiplication tables? So increasingly, when there's GPT and AI, a lot of what education is changes, right? Because we're moving into a world which I don't think people realize is initially we had a world where computing became cheaper and cheaper to almost free for most consumers, computing, right? So you could get a fantastic Cray equivalent of a supercomputer of Cray computer is one of the, Apple's iPhone 13 today is that. iPhone 15 Plus is much more of that. And iPhone 30 is what, $500? Uh, so that's number one. So computing became free. Then because of the internet, distribution became free, right?
Right.
Which is why newspapers and magazines all got hurt because they weren't really in the, they always thought they were in the content business and the free press business. They were basically in the monopoly of distribution business. Okay. And when the monopoly of distribution business went away, they didn't know how to operate. Now, and this is the really interesting thing, what happens when knowledge is free? And most of us are knowledge workers, and knowledge is free, right? And that is the world we're entering in. Knowledge is free. So, what does education become when knowledge is free?
That is super interesting, and I want to make sure everybody. Chegg is a book exchange company
Right.
that made its bones on
Used books.
education,
Right.
used
Yeah.
education books, and to drop 40% in value. That's a lot of value just to make that announcement.
Yeah, and so to a great extent, that's the entire thing. If you get hurt by AI, you lose 40%. If you put AI as lipstick on a pig, you go up a few percent. So that's what people are doing right now.
Unless you're Tropicana, and then you just run
Yes.
a really clever ad. So,
Right.
so you're sitting here in marketing, you're looking at this and you're thinking education is free, knowledge is free. I'm on a knowledge brand, or I'm in a knowledge business in marketing or advertising. What should I be doing now?
Yeah. So
Given that all
here's
my
what
stuff
happened.
could be free.
Yeah. So here's what basically happens is everybody in the advertising and marketing business who isn't working on the front lines, like at retail
Right.
or, in the factory, making the product or providing the service, um, almost 100% of our jobs are knowledge jobs.
Right.
Okay. And today, in anticipation of Davos, which starts tomorrow, it's
Right.
tonight, starting tomorrow, um, and the IMF, I believe, introduced a paper which said that 40% of all jobs will be impacted by AI.
Yeah.
But that rose significantly in advanced economies like the United States, where it was 60%.
Right. Because you have way less physical jobs and tons
and they're
of
more knowledge workers, right? So if you are today a chief marketing officer, if you're working any part of advertising, you're 100% knowledge worker, and your job is going to change dramatically in 2024. This is not a 2025 thing. It's a 2024 thing, which is what most people don't realize. So what should you do? Number one is embrace it like crazy, because I think the famous line is, you will not lose your job to AI. You will lose your job to somebody who knows AI better than you do, right? So one is embrace it. And I've been writing a lot about how to learn about this. And it's very simple. Use every tool and invest in paying the $20 a month to get the advanced versions of tool. Don't use free OpenAI. Use the $20 version of OpenAI because it's 6 months in advance and it's so different and so dramatically better that you should be doing that versus using what's free. Do the same thing for Runway ML. Do the same thing for everything. That's number one. Number two is once you do that, think about how your job is going to change and start adapting your organization to it, right? And the third is we will still be necessary to complement. I believe the future is AI plus HI, AI being artificial intelligence and HI being human inspiration. So how do you basically complement, right, AI? And those are things like insight, wisdom, ideas, curiosity, because AI looks backwards, looking forward. So those are some dramatic ways that you can change, which is embrace it, adapt your organization to remove any costs that are not necessarily needed, but then invest significantly in improving the quality. Because a lot of people believe AI is about cost cutting. Yes, it
Right.
will eliminate some costs, but I
Especially
don't
efficiency. There's a lot of efficiency drivers playing with this
there'll be
now,
some
all over.
efficiency
Yeah.
drivers, but here's what happens is the efficiency drivers will not be differentiated. Everyone
Right.
will have
Everyone's
exactly
going
the
to do
same
them. As soon as
efficiency
someone
drivers.
figures it out, it's like
Everyone's going to have
tyrant. It's
exactly
going
the
to be
same thing,
everywhere.
right?
Yeah.
So when, I've always basically believed when people say we've got great search, I said, look, search is a tax. Okay. It's the part of the margin you take, you send to Google. It's not a differentiator.
Yes,
Okay.
that's a big.
Okay.
That's a
So I mean,
big.
come on, people, get a grip on
So,
yourselves.
so let's
Okay.
let's let's springboard because we talked about the impact of
Yeah.
AI, and now the other thing, like staring marketers right in the face right now, is the long-awaited Google cookie issue is finally actually here. Even though I think they're only testing like 1% of users on this cookie thing, and you can read about it all you want. Talk about the cookie issue and
Okay.
and
So
then let's
here's
combine it with AI because a
so
lot have
here's what
changed.
okay. So here are three thoughts that I basically share with senior marketers, all of whom are much smarter than me, and all of them usually have this knowledge before I do, but maybe not in the extreme version that I deliver it. And so number one is this entire cookie thing is a sideshow. Okay. Because what you're trying to basically do is someone is basically saying, we are no longer going to put coal in our steam engines, right? And for some reason, let's say the entire marketing business was built on coal, which is like cookies. And someone says, okay, no more cookies in the steam engine. So everyone's getting all worked up about it. The real issue is the aircrafts are coming, right? So it doesn't matter what you put in the steam engine because search is being reinvented. Everything with SEO is not going to work anymore because the reality of it is people do not want information, they want answers.
Right. So you're gonna search is gonna it. I think you
It,
called it a tax. And search,
yeah.
what search does is it gives you homework. Basically, it gives
Search
you a
gives you
bunch of
homework.
things
Yeah.
to choose.
Yeah. The basically what happens is the reason why advertising on search works is because search doesn't work. Okay. If search worked, it would give you the answer and you wouldn't be clicking around on stupid links and ads.
Right. You wouldn't go to the
Okay.
link.
Right. So now
Boom.
obviously,
Yeah.
yeah. So what's basically happening is the question that I would have is what if SEO disappears, not what if cookie disappears? SEO,
Yeah.
SEM disappears or becomes far, far smaller. That's the real story. The cookie story is a sideshow.
So
Okay.
tell us as this develops, the sideshow, and I agree with you
Right.
on the sideshow. And also, I think there's a fundamental thing that you just said that is very important, which is consumers use search because it gets them to their answer faster than using anything else, but it
Right.
still gives them homework every time.
Yeah, it gives you
Yeah.
information you have to go through to answers, and as people use, AI based chatbots, etc., their old stuff is I'm going to give you a goddamn answer, right?
Yeah, right. And maybe even one that works
And,
instead of like, yeah,
and one that works. And then at some particular, so that is the big, that's one challenge. The other one is this. The real thing that people are not paying attention to, and maybe now they'll pay attention to because of something nothing to do with reality, which is Bitcoin ETFs, okay, is I have been, and I wrote a piece called The Future of the Internet, which I stand by, which is I believe the future of the internet is built on AI plus blockchain plus XR. And that's what Web3 is. So Web3 is not gone anywhere. Web3 is very powerful and it's about to challenge people, but people made the mistake of linking Web3 to metaverse. That's not what
yeah,
it was. Okay. Web3 is AI, blockchain, and blockchain, I'll tell you why blockchain speaks to cookies. Because for anybody who happens to have used crypto, you used to have a wallet or you bought an
right,
NFT, you have to have a wallet. Wallet is the new identity. Okay. Wallet is tied into commerce. Wallet is tied into privacy. You have zero permissionless stuff. If your company is not studying wallets, and you're thinking that you can figure out the future of cookies by just figuring out bullshit about cookies. My old stuff is when you're thinking about cookies, number one, what's the future of wallets? Number two, what happens if SEO, SEM completely disappears, right? And number three, which is extremely, extremely important, is what happens, as I anticipate people are going to suddenly recognize, is that all the major platforms do to marketers what they've already done to media companies.
That concludes part one of our show. Tune in next week for part two with Rishad Tobaccowala.